70% of startups fail in the first 3 years and 90% overall. That means only 1 in 10 startups will end in a successful exit. 1 in 10. Let that sink in for a moment. Startups fail for a host of reasons, but the one I will talk about today is the dreaded burn rate. How much money does your startup spend on crap you do not need? In today's video, I will tell you some of the areas we spend money on that we shouldn't, so you don't make the same mistakes. Check it out. Burn rate. The amount of money you spend every month to keep the engine running. If you're a startup, a lot of the burn rate comes from the salaries you pay your employees. Since understanding the value of your team is very subjective and specific to your product and your needs, I will steer clear of that cost for now and focus more on expenses that are more universal to all startups. One thing I will mention about hiring, just as a footnote, is that sometimes we get caught up in this find the savior mindset. If I only had this awesome UX guy, if I only had this awesome senior engineer, we can break through. This is never the answer. If you're looking for a savior, then your startup probably has bigger problems than you realize. It's a lot like the old saying, if you wait for everything in your life to be okay to be happy, then you'll never be happy. We got a little off topic here, so let's get back on track. In our startup, we've spent money on things that we shouldn't have. Hindsight is always 20/20. Here are some of the things that you should be very picky about spending money on. Let's start with software as a service subscriptions. Right now, go and check how much money per month you're spending on subscriptions to different services. This number tends to grow and grow very, very fast. You always feel like you need this and you need that. Don't forget, just like you, the majority of the services are startups, so they know how to sell. In general, there are 2 main categories of subscriptions you probably have. One simply automates a business process you already have. The other adds certain value to your experience. For example, we use ClickUp as our task management system. In the beginning, we would assign tasks and follow up manually, like via email or verbally. Once we subscribed to ClickUp, we automated that process and it saved a bunch of time. It also adds a little bit of value because managing everyone's to-do list in one window is obviously awesome. Before you subscribe to any type of service that is automating a task and saving you time, you need to have that process in place. Don't expect the system to create the flow for you. Have the flow, then simply subscribe to a service that will automate that and save time. The second category was services that actually add value. They create the flow for you. For example, we use Impact for our affiliate marketing program. The added value that Impact gives us is that it acts as an escrow account. We keep a certain amount of money in Impact, and the commission payments the affiliates get are calculated and executed automatically through the system. This means that the affiliates trust that the amount they are being paid is correct and the client isn't screwing them over. Added value. You might think, well, I have a bunch of subscriptions, but I don't know which one I can cut out without harming the overall flow. For this, we use the toothbrush test. If your team is not using that subscription at least twice a day, then most likely you can do without. The next big cost I want to talk about is marketing costs. This one is a little bit tricky. The amount of money you could spend on Google, Facebook, Twitter, etc. is endless. You can pump an infinite amount of dollars into that void. My theory is the following. If your startup's growth is solely based on pay-per-click, then you have a problem. The VCs understand that if your main advantage is pumping money into pay-per-click, well, they can do that without you. They don't need you. If your product has true demand in the market, your market fit is on point, then you should be able to acquire users without a huge amount of marketing budget. How do we do it? We use our marketing budget in 2 main ways. First, we pump money into processes and funnels which we know have traction. This is based on user data. For example, we see that a lot of e-commerce businesses is using one of our products to monitor their competitors for price changes. We take that traction and add fuel to the fire by spending marketing budget on it. We use marketing costs here as an accelerant. We are constantly on the lookout for little sparks in the usage data that we can add fuel to the fire. The second area we spend money is on testing. Sometimes the marketing insights don't come from the usage data, but come from real-world theories. Just to be clear, these are still theories. If the team feels like the theory has value, We would spend some money on it and try to understand if that theory has traction in the real world. While using this approach, there are a couple of things to remember. First of all, failure is always an option. You have to go into it knowing that you might be wrong. Be honest with yourself. If the theory doesn't pan out, cut the budget quickly. Don't throw good money after bad money. The second thing you need to take into account when testing a marketing theory is that you have to know what success looks like. You have an assumption you are testing, but make sure you already know what your expectations are. What needs to happen for you to consider the test successful? So after testing, you know whether or not to pump more money into that funnel. Try to be as objective as possible. Put some metrics into place so you can measure the results. For example, we spent some money on influencers to see if that would give any results. As soon as the influencer content went live, I was sitting at my desk checking the traffic and user registration data. It worked. Traffic jumped. We got a huge boost in registrations. To our surprise, the bump lasted longer than expected. For months after the initial influencer engagement, we still had higher traffic and user registrations, which was one of the criteria we had set forth before starting the test. We wanted to make sure that there was a certain amount of sustainability. Now we have a full-on influencer marketing program. If you want to learn more about how to better manage your influencer program, check out the video here. One money pit that most startups fail to realize early on is PR. If you have, then just like me, you realize that it was pointless. PR does not drive growth. It does not drive VC engagement. In the realm of must-have, should-have, and could-have, it falls under the could-have category. You absolutely do not need an expensive agency creating media pitches and mass mailing media outlets. You can do this yourself and much better than they can. My PR experience with agencies is just that. They don't really understand the product or understand our vision. They don't have a deep dive and create meaningful content for you. It's a conveyor belt approach, next client up. When they're trying to close you, they will promise you the moon. I have a contact at TechCrunch. I know somebody at Forbes. I've heard these pitch lines so many times that I'm simply sick and tired of it. Most journalists are more than happy to talk to you directly if you actually have news. They also need content for their media outlets, and what better source of information than the founder of the company, you. Last but not least, let's talk about the money we spend on events and sponsorships. This is the classic chicken and the egg story. Do you sponsor events to get brand recognition, or does your brand need to be recognizable for you to get value from the event? I'm a believer in the latter. Everyone loves a winner. If you're growing your business, then people will react and come flocking to your side. Sponsoring or participating in an event in itself is not going to give you any type of legitimate credibility. Everyone knows that being at an event or being a sponsor has no reflection on your company's reputation. It's a simple commercial transaction. You gave money. That's why you're there. There are many ways to be present at an event without spending tons of money. Just like you run growth hacking exercises to acquire new users, you can also hack the event. Check which hotels the participants are staying at. Grab breakfast there, hand out flyers, execute a flash mob, whatever it takes to grab the attention of the event participants without actually having to pay for a booth or any type of sponsorship. Wow, this was a really long video. The old saying goes, 50% of my marketing budget is spent on crap. I just don't know which 50%. We as startup founders must be smarter than that. We have to be scrappy and be able to sustain growth without bloating our burn rate. Take it from someone who's been there. Don't blow your budget on shit you really don't need. Thanks for sticking around, and please help us out by hitting that subscribe button. See you next week.